on the first and third meeting of most months. I'd like to call the meeting to order at this time and invite you to stand and join us tonight in an invocation which will be led by Reverend Greg Steibel of the Whidbey Presbyterian Church. Reverend Steibel will be joining us on the screen up there, and then immediately following that I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Reverend Steibel?
Yes, thank you. Hello, everybody, and greetings on behalf of Whidbey Presbyterian Church. Please take a moment with me while I pray. Holy Lord, I thank you for the season in which we find ourselves. As the wind blows and the rain comes down and the temperatures drop, I see the beauty of this island that you created, and I'm reminded of the power of nature. As families and friends gather in the coming weeks for various holiday celebrations here in this town, I'm reminded of the joy that you give us. May they be blessed with happiness and hope. May they be brought together in love. And Lord, this evening, I ask for your wisdom for this group of people. May their deliberations be for the good of all. May they have joy in the business of governance. May this council meeting be a beacon of peace in this city and in this world. And I pray all of this in your holy name. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So tonight's meeting is being streamed live on YouTube and Facebook and will be broadcast on cable channel 10, HD 1090 following the meeting. Attendees are participating both in person and via teleconference. Guests that are included in any staff presentations will be excused at the conclusion of the agenda item as appropriate. So we're going to not call on the clerk to do our roll call because we have a full council tonight. Thank you, councilors. And now we'll move on to the approval of the agenda. And to begin with, staff has requested that we move item number 9A to after item 6A, as the proponents are present, and we can let them enjoy the rest of their evening after that agenda item. So any other changes to the agenda?
I assume they want to be here for the whole meeting. You guys want to be here the whole time, right? Yeah, I'm kidding.
Okay, no other changes. The meeting I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Yes, Councilor Munns.
So moved, as amended.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that as proposed that we move agenda item 9A to item 6A. And that motion is made by Councilor Munns, second by Mayor Pro Tem Heisen. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. No other changes. We have no proclamations this evening, but under presentations, we certainly do have a presentation, one that we look forward to. Tonight we have Boy Scout Troop 4059, and they've been waiting patiently out there. Got here before the meeting started, following all the rules, I'm sure, to show up early, and they do, and thank you. So without any further ado, I'll call on Scoutmaster Ricky Ford to introduce Troop 4059 and make the presentations.
Hello, this is Troop 4059. We're here to present the Wreath to the city this evening. We have, make sure I see everybody. We have Justin, Morgan, Judah, Thorin, Ryan, Preston, William, Jonah, Keegan, James, Jackson, Jacob, and Silas.
Fabulous. So with that, we will accept that. Certainly look forward to it, and I think we would like to try to get a picture And we'll try to gather around you here in front of us. Sabrina, hopefully you've got your camera. Oh, yes, you do. Look at Sabrina. Any other announcements? That's a beautiful wreath. We will have that displayed in front of City Hall until Christmas. So thank you very much, Troop 4059.
Yeah, scoot around so that you're in the front so that they can stand up behind your picture.
Okay? And, yeah, why don't we stand and or wherever you'd like us, Sabrina?
You guys can push in next to Justin behind the ring. Yeah, you're fine where you are. Put some there, put there.
If you're behind Justin, you're not going to get seen.
I know. If you're behind Justin, maybe move left and right. Short kids behind Justin. Smiles, everybody. Ryan, don't stand behind Justin. Go that way. You go that way. You good? All parents get it?
Smile, Justin.
Traxon. There we go. Now we can see behind Justin.
So did you all work on that wreath, each of you? Oh, you're so honest. Yeah, let's go down and shake your hand. Thanks, guys. 50 years ago, right there, thank you. 50-year tradition. 50? Thank you. Yeah, 50 years ago, I was standing exactly right here, 50 years. You snuck it in there. Thank you guys very much. Thank you. What's up, Tony? How you doing? Thank you so much. Things going well? Very much. Thank you. Of course. Great tradition, you guys. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Eric was in that troop, and I hope to make
Best news ever. I think.
So if you didn't hear that, Councilor Wiesner said 50 years ago, he was standing here. That was before cameras, I think. Certainly before cell phone cameras. Thank you again very much.
Great job, guys. Somebody catch proof in a stone.
Well, there should be a copy of it somewhere then.
So the next item on our agenda is something that I asked for, and I asked the staff to consider a special mayor's award. And it goes a little further than 20 years. 16, I guess, is what we had logged in here. It goes a little further than 16 years on the planning commission. So when I came to Oak Harbor, it was 1974. March 1st, I started a job not far out of college, and my mentor at the time became my best friend. And he, not long after I arrived, he told me that he had a relative that was coming to town. And I wondered whether he was going to start working for the company or not. No, he had a business of his own. And when the Wasingers arrived, they opened a business, and that was the first of the two 7-Eleven stores here in Oak Harbor. And I didn't think a lot about it at the time, but the Wasingers and my family had offspring that played some sports together. So I got to know Greg and Linda a little bit better during that time, and I marveled because Greg was involved with kids and sports, but he had a business in town that operated 24/7, 365 days a year. And I thought a little bit about that because I got to go home, in the evening from my job. And then when I realized that, and I believe it was probably the first establishment in Oak Harbor that was open 24 hours in that, servicing our community. Obviously, as we move forward, and I understand policing and some of the things that we have to do at city, well, we're responsible for 24 hours, but Greg and Linda not only provided, some lots of entertainment, or not entertainment, that's not the right word, lots of people in the evenings. I know our police department, our fire department would talk about being able to stop at 7-Eleven, and in those days, nothing else was open. It didn't take, it took a while. I can't know, Greg would know the exact number of days or years probably, until he opened another store. Not only did he have one store, then he had two full-time stores, 24/7, 365 days a year. That's a big deal. And nowadays, we have, other stores that are open a lot longer hours too. But during those years, it amazed me because those two could operate that business. Greg might fall asleep on the way to a soccer game in the car, but it would only be about 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and he just didn't seem to sleep. And I thought, wow. And then Greg gets on our planning commission. I didn't think much of it, about it, only in that when I first decided to get on council, I thought, well, council at least gets a little stipend payment for what they do, not near what you're worth. I know that, folks, but planning commission people, school board people too, don't get paid anything. And Greg was about as consistent of a volunteer in our community for 16 years on our planning commission as anybody I can remember, while he still operated two stores 24/7, 365 days a year. Still does that today. Has family helping him. I see Brian in the background. Welcome, Brian. Good to see you here. But back to Greg, I just can't tell you enough what the volunteerism, what the time means, especially to any city, but to Oak Harbor. You have been a rock star in my book, just to be able to do, you were when you had one store, and then you have two stores, and then you sit at our planning commission meetings, and you are such a solid person. I want to give you tonight a couple of things. They're not any huge things, but I know you don't have a lot of room in your house for, wonderful, great gifts. But you get your planning commission sign back. It's all yours. You get a certificate of appreciation in recognition of your service from myself. I'm calling this a special mayor's award because I'm not giving any others. I did talk about an employee not long ago that I think is pretty darn special. But last thing, I'm going to give you my gavel because I think it was your gavel. It was a gavel that's been in, and I want you to have all three of these. And I just want to tell you thanks for being such a wonderful Oak Harbor citizen. We appreciate it.
Got into a couple sticky wickets, so to speak, but, that's part of the
Oh, that's right. That's right, the Blue Fox Drive-In. I forgot that. I could have, how do you do that with two 24/7 businesses? And thank you.
We have a concert to go to.
All right. Thank you. So item number 3 on our agenda is citizen comment period. Citizens may comment on consent agenda items or subjects of interest not listed on the agenda at this time. Citizens will have the opportunity to comment on the remaining agenda items during the meeting as appropriate. Citizens can also visit our website prior to our meetings for methods to submit public comments or contact the city clerk, Julie Nestor, by phone or email. When submitting comments, please include your name and address. Public comments sent anonymously will be shared with the mayor and council, but will not be displayed. We have received one new public comment since our last regular meeting from Jory Amend regarding the line of sight on West Whidbey Avenue. The comment is displayed on the screen. Okay, we'll turn back to are there any members of the public present who wish to speak to items not listed on the agenda or on the consent agenda? If so, the clerk will call your name in the order in which you signed in. Anybody signed in?
No, Mayor, we have no one signed
Okay,
in this
and
evening.
If you wish to step up at this time, you may. Otherwise, we'll close the public comment period and get started on our agenda. Okay, hearing no one, we'll close the public comment period at this time. Move to item number 4 on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. We will now move to the consent agenda. Staff has requested, or staff has presented the listed consent agenda items, all of which were included in the meeting packet. Any changes, questions? Not seeing any. Yes, Councilor Munns.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to pull 4C,
Okay.
please.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes, Councilor Wasinger.
Yes, I'd like to pull 4E, please.
C and E. Okay. Okay. So the other items will be approved as presented, and we will turn back then to Councilor Munns for questions about 4C.
Thank you, sir. Sandra Place, I can see you. This is questions for you, good write-up and stuff. But I was curious, I know how the system works in Washington. They save money, they can help sell our surface vehicles or equipment and stuff like that. But why Arizona? I mean, what's the connection and why is this important? Please.
So that's a great question. Through our networking with the city of Burlington, we found out that they're obtaining hybrid police vehicles from Arizona because they're more readily available down there through their distribution. So they suggested that we get this interlocal agreement in place. And so this will just give us that extra buying power to be able to have another avenue, especially when we're struggling here in Washington State. So a great example of this is today I just received an email about the 5 hybrid patrol cars that we have on order. And this is the second time they've notified us that they're probably not going to be on the manufacturing line for 2024 and that we'll have to reorder for 2025. I called up the vendor and I asked them, you know, why can Arizona get them and Washington is having such a struggle? And she said that they have asked for the exact same question with no answer. And I think it just, again, comes down to distribution, and they're just getting more in a different location than Washington State is. And I think this is a great opportunity for us to join forces with them by utilizing their contracts because it just gives us more purchasing power.
That's great. And also the hybrids are also going to save on gas money. So this is exciting.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Councilor Munns. We'll turn then to regarding item number E.
Mayor, I would recommend you do a motion to approve it since it's pulled off the agenda.
I was going to do both at the same time, but
It's up to you.
thank you.
Okay.
I would have possibly forgot otherwise. Thank you. We'll just turn to Councilor Wiesner for questions about item E.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. A question about the marathon shirts. Where are they going in surplus?
I think Sandra Place?
So the idea, yes, so the idea behind this is instead of just disposing of them through, going into the trash, they're going to be distributed for basically advertising purposes, for city staff. We could think about even going outside the box with organizations, and just by people wearing them, it would be an advertisement for the marathon, and it would give them that, maybe that light bulb to say, hey, I'm going to sign up for that marathon because I didn't know it existed. So that is the intent.
Fantastic. That's the exact answer I wanted to hear, right? I didn't want to see a pallet of Whidbey Marathon shirts going on some auction site and being sold for $1. I would like to see maybe those go to the Chamber of Commerce, some of those, right? They always have a need for swag bags, et cetera. Great little thing for, somebody when they're walking into the office and inquiring and they walk out with a T-shirt. Even the police department, I can see that, having them in the trunk of their cars and having a kid and being able to give them a free T-shirt, right? A chance to leave an impression. So, great idea, and that's exactly how I would like to see them surplused, distributed around the city, advertising and goodwill. Thank you.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion. Yes, Councilor Munns.
Also, I had been talking with Sandra, but check with legal and whoever, but Boys and Girls Club, some of those kids, they would be so thrilled to have a brand-new T-shirt because they may not even be able to afford it in some cases. So there are lots of ways to distribute and get advertisement out of it. So I would be happy to make the motion, Mayor, if people are ready.
Super.
All right, I move that we approve 4C and E for this evening on the agenda.
Second.
Okay, motion second to approve consent agenda items 4C and 4E. That motion made by Councilor Munns, second by Councilor Wiesner. All in, any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Okay, that passes unanimously. We are on a roll.
Thank you.
I think am I all right to go to mayor's comments at this time? Thank you. You're gonna have to help me when we get to 6A and B, you're gonna have to help me. So the election was certified, the general election results were certified by the canvassing board on November 28th. I'd like to offer my congratulations to Mayor-elect Ronnie Wright, who will be sworn in at the January 2nd council meeting. I'm confident that Oak Harbor will be in good hands under its leadership. On January 2nd, we will also administer the oath of office to current Mayor Pro Tem Tara Heisen, position number 1, returning council member Chris Wiggenstein, position 2, and continuing council member Eric Marshall for the full term portion of position 3. So that will be done at the January 2nd meeting. I also wanted to announce that the AWC's elected officials essentials workshop is scheduled for Saturday, December 9th. I understand we have a number of elected officials attending. Please see Executive Assistant Mikhail Finkel for registration assistance or questions. And so with that, I'll turn to council for any comments from council at this time. Council comments? Okay. Yes, Councilor Wiesner.
I'd just like to say downtown looks beautiful. Yeah, love
Okay.
it. Great job, Main Street and the lights and the trees and our new Christmas tree. Fantastic. Thank you.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Okay. Yes, Councilor Munns.
I want to thank the community for helping Help House, our local food bank. They came through and we had enough items. We had help from the base FRC and NASWE both volunteered. They had like 3 pallets of frozen turkeys to unload from SARS. We had to rent a Penske truck for that. But basically, just for that one meal, 1,200 people in different families, just for that one meal. So Christmas isn't quite as crowded because a lot of people go home, and so they can share with their family. So we're only going to do about 200 turkeys and 150 hams and like 50 turkeys. Give people a choice, ones that don't drink anyway. But anything that you can drop off, or even your $5, we can make that into a meal. I'll guarantee you, through our ways that we can buy through different sources. So, but thank you very much, and everybody's got to eat, whether it's a holiday or not. So I appreciate your help. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Munns. Anyone else? Okay. That concludes council comments at this time. We'll move on. And I think the way we set this up is we are going to do item number 6A, and then we will do item number 9A. Okay. 6A is ordinance number 1983, mid-biennial budget amendment number 5 to the 2023-2024 biennial budget. And for that, this evening, we have our Deputy City Administrator and Finance Director, Mr. David Goldman. Mr. Goldman, welcome.
Welcome. Let me just see if I can get this thing to share, the screen to share. All right, you all see that?
Yes, we can.
So this is the biennial budget amendment for the 2023-2024 biennial budget. This amendment's unlike the other amendments that we bring before you. There's no new money or expenses included in this. This amendment is required per state law for cities and counties that use the biennial budget process. What we basically do with this one is we look at how we're doing in 2023, the current year, and we project out for the remainder of the year, and then adjust the estimates for the second year of the biennial budget, which is 2024. We adjust the estimates for the fund balances. And the fund balances that are included in the budget per GASB and state auditor, they represent the amount of a fund's unencumbered fund balance. It doesn't include the other types of fund balance that I report out to the city council on a periodic basis, such as non-spendable, restricted, reserved, or encumbered. So in the backup, I have a summary of every fund, but the major funds that we have are the general fund and all of those utility funds and the marina fund. And just a quick overview, the general fund, we received better than expected revenues for 2023. So the amended amount for the beginning fund balance for 2024 will be increasing by 1.275 million. For the water fund, the beginning fund balance will be decreasing by about 193,000 based on increased water costs from Anacortes. For sewer, the beginning fund balance looks like it'll be increasing by a little over 500,000 based on lower than expected expenditures. And these are the operating funds. We'll go over the capital funds in the next slide. For the solid waste, there were some increased expenditures, and we're looking at decreasing beginning fund balance by 151,000. For storm drain, we have some lower than expected expenditures. We're looking at increasing that beginning fund balance by about $250,000. And for marina, we're looking at decreasing the beginning fund balance by about 116,000, but that's mainly due to a capital transfer to the marina improvements, which you'll see on the next slide. So the next slide has the capital funds for each one of these projects, for each one of these major funds. And you'll see that most of the funds, we're increasing the beginning fund balance for the capital project funds due to projects that are ongoing. They either were multi-year projects or they weren't yet completed all the way in 2023. So because of that, we have additional beginning fund balance to continue those projects in each one of the utility funds, except then also for the marina fund as well. For storm drain, there's some carry forward project. For sewer, that's the only difference. There's some lower than expected expenditures in sewer, which is increasing the projection for beginning fund balance. And with that, suggestion is to open the public hearing and then move to adopt the Ordinance 1983, Budget Amendment Number 5, amending the 2023-24 biennial budget.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Goldman. So at this time, I will open the public hearing and call for any public comments. Seeing none, I will turn to our clerk to make sure that we've not received any public comments.
That's correct, Mayor. No comments were received.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing. Then at this time, turn to the council. Any questions or comments or? No? Yes, Councilor Stuckey.
I move to adopt ordinance number 1983, Budget Amendment 5, amending the 2023-2024 biennial budget and adopting an updated wage and salary schedule and plan of classification.
Okay, got a motion and a second, and that motion reads exactly like the recommended action in front of you. That motion was made by Councilor Stuckey, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Heisen. Any other input or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by raising your right hand. And that passes unanimously. Okay, we are on a roll.
All right, thank you.
What time? No. We will now turn to our budget or our agenda item 9A, which is Smith Annexation Proposal, 1311 Swantown Road, parcel number 57685-03-00014-0. And I believe for that we have Development Services Director David Kuhl and Principal Planner Kamak, or at least CAC. I see CAC there. Okay?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I just did a share screen, went straight to jump to the presentation. I hope you can see that, and I hope you can hear me.
We can.
All good, okay. So what we have today is a request for annexation from property owners Jacob Smith and Stephanie Smith. This is for a single-family residential lot on Swantown Road. The property is located, as you can see on this map, the yellow shaded areas in the city, and what you can see clearly as an aerial is in the county. This is Swantown Road, and the properties in purple are the properties that are under consideration today. But the Smith family owns the furthest property on Swantown Road, where you can see my cursor. I hope you can see that. The property owner has written a letter to the mayor, and I'll go through the process with the city council on what we normally do when we consider annexation requests. But I do want to kind of give a little brief history about these two properties before we jump further in considering the Smith annexation request. So the properties, the two properties here adjacent to the city limits are the properties owned by the Kirkendalls. And if the city council remembers, I think about a year ago, maybe in March 2022, the Kirkendalls requested to annex into the city. The city council conducted a meeting similar to the meeting tonight and said, yes, we would like to have you in the city. Let's go ahead with the annexation process. So usually after these initial meetings, there are some additional things that need to happen before the actual annexation occurs. We have to sign petitions. These properties will have to be surveyed for meets and bounds description. So basically, I think the state requires that the annexation of the city limits, which was described in meets and bounds, be amended to outline these properties along with the right-of-way and re-describe the city boundaries in this new format. I think that's kind of what this survey will do. So all these need to be compiled into documents, and then they come in as a petition, and then there's a process by which we send it to the county, and they go through the process of annexations. However, we did not receive the following follow-up documents from the Kirkendall, but in considering the Smith annexation, there's an opportunity here to consider all of these properties in one petition. So that is kind of the direction I think staff is tending to tonight. So that's kind of the background story in combining these three lots tonight. But the actual request tonight is from the Smith family, which is the property located, and it's not actually contiguous, and they do need the Kirkendalls to come into the city and annex into the city. So with any annexations, the city council has the discretion to say yes or no. And in considering these annexations, the city council can accept, reject the area. It's, again, at the city council's discretion to do so. There are no state laws or criteria that says you have to. The state also gives the city council the authority to geographically modify the area, which is what we're requesting you do tonight. The state also requires the city council to consider whether to require a zoning with the annexation, which the city always does, and whether the annexed property should share in the city indebtedness, and there's no reason why they shouldn't. So these are the three things that basically the city council considers at this first meeting with the request. And for some reason, if the city council does not want to annex, there's no sort of right to appeal like there is in other project evaluation or site evaluation processes. So in accepting any annexation, there's generally an increase in service, fire and police. These are standard things that just to be aware of. These are, even though we're bringing small properties in, cumulatively through annexation, we do increase our demand for services and have transportation impacts. For these particular properties, the property-specific impacts are utility connections. I think they are desirous of connecting to the city sewer with their failing systems. So with this annexation, they will be able to extend their infrastructure and connect to city services. Zoning is part of the request. So this is designated for land use in the land use plan. It's an IUGA, so it can be annexed, and therefore it will come in as R1 low density residential if the city chooses to annex, and if they do annex into the city. As I talked about indebtedness, this is in reference to existing and future bonds. This is just part of becoming a taxpayer in the city and part of being in the city. So this is something that you also consider in this initial request. So for this request, staff is recommending that the city council conduct a meeting with the applicant. We do have some representatives from the applicant at the meeting, and so they can make their statements. So we recommend conducting that meeting, and as an action, we recommend moving to accept the annexation for the Smith and geographically modifying it to include the Kirkendalls. And even though they had already submitted a request, this action allows them to all get on the same petition as the Smith. So it's just, we're trying to consolidate them onto one petition, and so that they can share some of the costs. There's some benefits in going in as a larger group into annexations. So I think it'll be beneficial for them and for the city to combine them. So that is the recommended action for tonight. So with that, I will turn it back to the city council so that they can conduct the meeting with the petitioner, and I'm here to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Mr. Kamak. Before we turn to council, I'd like to verify that we've received no public comment regarding this.
That's correct, Mayor. No comment has been received.
Okay? No comment, so we'll turn to the council for questions or comments. Yes, Councilor Wiesner.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for the presentation, Kat. Clear as always. I really do appreciate that. Have you had any conversations with the Kirkendalls? Are they still interested in pursuing annexations? Okay. Okay,
I think they are here, and they can probably address that.
Because from what I understand, what you mentioned, the requested annexation that's in front of us is basically due to failing septic. Is that correct?
Can you move to the...
Yeah, why don't we come to the microphone? Then I'll give you all a chance at this time to comment. Please.
I am the father of Stephanie and son-in-law Jacob, and we're over at 1311 Swantown. And yeah, the problem with the soil, and it's been surveyed and they do the percolation testing, the soil has failed twice, and there's basically not really that much room left on the property, even though the property's quite large. It's about half an acre. The amount of room left, and I don't know why, the city planner came out with the soil testing, and they said that they can't go where the old system was, and the amount of room left on the lower half of the property isn't large enough for a 4-bedroom, and they would also have to make a mound system, and the cost was estimated $25,000 to $30,000 to do that, which seems a lot because the soil will then again fail. And if the other properties around this house and the Krippendalls have that same soil, we're right next door, we were thinking we would love to get put on the city system, you know, and as the rain falls and the wind is blowing, we would like to get it done as quickly as possible, if it is possible. And I even have here the signed owner's petition by Stephanie and Jacob and the Krippendalls, you know, for the actual petition. So that paperwork is done. But we just need to get the right order of operations to have everything follow in a proper manner and sequential steps. Thank you. Oh, was I supposed to sign something?
No, but if you could state your name.
Oh, my name is Blair Atwell. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Atwell. And yes, Councilor Munn.
Thank you. Kat, thank you for the presentation. I definitely want to see this move forward. This isn't the final vote, but I'd hate to see people be in trouble and have a disaster where it's an emergency. And as long as we can plan and move this along quickly and do all the permits, sound like different things, soil testing and stuff have been done. And it won't cause an enclave. You know, all the properties are right there, they're connected to the city, and so it's very logical to add them. But, you know, we still know they have to do the fire and the police exam, and then the roads, to be sure. And at this time, you're not planning on developing your property yet? You just want to be able to live where you want to live and have flushing toilets and good water. Okay. Got it. Well, I think this is great, and I'd like to see this project move along.
Yeah, thank you to those concerned for being present tonight. I move to accept the request as presented.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion to accept the action as presented, and that motion is made by Councilor Hoffmeyer, seconded by Councilor Munns. Any other questions? Or yes, Councilor Wiesner.
Mayor, just for clarification, I think the intent is to also geographically modify the request to include the Kirkendalls, because the actual request in front of us is for the one property, but we want to add the, so it's friendly amendment to.
But I think the motion that was made did include both. Can you put that back on the screen, Tim? Recommended action was to include both? Yeah. So there it is. Move to accept as requested and geographically modify.
As recommended, yeah.
Okay?
Thank
Okay. That'll get it done though, right? Staff?
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
So I think we've got the motion, we know who made the second. Any other questions or input? Okay, seeing none, all in favor signify by raising your right hand. That passes unanimously. Okay, that's item number 9A behind us. Now we'll go back to item number 7. And item number 7, Executive Services Administrator Sabrina Combs is with us tonight to present all of the ordinances and related resolutions together, and then review any questions or comments from the council. I think with that, I'm going to turn it right to Sabrina. Thank you,
Mayor.
Sabrina.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. So the advisory boards and ordinances and resolutions, bringing this back as I promised. So the background is, just to give us a reminder, we implemented some standardized templates for meeting agendas, meeting minutes, and video recordings of the meetings to make it more transparent for the public. We also presented you on October 25th the draft of the ordinance and bylaws that we had created, and then we incorporated your comments that you requested, and then we updated the advisory boards or the staff liaisons on those changes. So with that, we are focused on the external advisory boards, and this is the list of those boards. We are not going to be touching the internal at this time. Then the revisions, a focus of the revisions is things like number of members that you had requested, so we moved from 5 to 7. Term limits, we reduced it from 4 to 2 at your request. And then service requirements, ex officio student representation, and processes, these were all just cleanup items that we did after that meeting. So the first one that we're going to tackle together here is to repeal Chapter 2.65. And again, just as a reminder, the purpose of repealing is that we are using the same chapter, but we did so many edits that we wanted to just repeal and replace to make it easier. So with that, the step for that would be to do a motion to repeal Oak Harbor Municipal Code, Chapter 2.65, and approve revised Oak Harbor Municipal Code, Chapter 2.65 with ordinance number 1984 for the uniform policies for boards, commissions, and committees. So I'm going to pause there.
Council Weiser?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I just want to comment, I'm just excited about this. Just getting the students on those 3 boards, is important, having that youth opinion on those boards. And so I'm glad to see that. I'm happy to see that we've expanded the number of people on the boards so that we can have active dialogue at those meetings, even if we have 1 or 2 members absent. Incoming Mayor Wright hopefully will, lean on the council and will certainly help, fill some of those positions. It's a lot of positions to fill with volunteers, and certainly we can help with that and get those positions filled. So I'd like to make the motion to repeal Oak Harbor Municipal Code, Chapter 265, and approve revised Oak Harbor Municipal Code, Chapter 265, ordinance number 1984, uniform policies for boards, commissions, and committees.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion second, and that motion reads exactly like the recommended action before you. Motion was made by Councilor Wiesner and second by Councilor Hoffmeyer. Any other questions or input? Yes, Councilor Munns.
Thank you. Sabrina, the student members, the 3 that you're looking at, will they be part of a quorum or not as far as the business of that commission?
No, we did not make them part of the quorum, but they would be able to participate, and that's due to 2 things. Their school schedule. Some of them, as you know, also usually their time during the year is not the full time that the committee would be meeting, so.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Not a question, but I'm noticing that there are a couple of commissions that need to fill the ex officio council representative, and I volunteer for, I volunteer to serve in any of those vacancies if needed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Anyone else? Questions? Yes, Councilor Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. No questions. I just wanted to thank Sabrina and Mikhail and Kim for all the work that they put in on this and going over this with all the different commissions and making sure it's all squared away. I recognize you guys put a lot of time into this and appreciate it. I think it's much needed, so thank you.
Thank you. It's an awesome team, and we've done a great job, so I really appreciate their work.
Councillor Stuckey.
I know when all of these meet currently, I'm going to guess, for example, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission, they're probably, if they do get a student member, I'm assuming they're going to have to change their time of meeting.
We did talk about that briefly, that there is some consideration for that, so we will work on that as we go into the new year. Some of our action items for the new year based on these documents is going to be talking about the schedule, talking about making sure we're doing the training, and we've checked those boxes, so that will be part of it.
And the students, do they also have to go through some of the training that's required of all of us?
Yes,
when
we'd
we're
want
on
them to do the OPMA training, and there's
Sure.
one other, but I'm not recalling it off the top of my head. Public records, yeah, so thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, got a motion second. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. That passes unanimously. Thank you. So,
We still got more, sorry.
yeah,
Sorry. Sorry, not sorry, I guess, okay. So I'm going to now go through, that was the first phase. Now I'm going to go through each of the individual boards and the external boards that we need to impact. So we're going to have a motion for the ordinance, and then we're going to have a motion for the resolution for the bylaws. So I'm going to go through each of them so we can get there together. Okay. So the first one is ordinance number 1985, and this is to adopt the ordinance for creating the new chapter 2.29, which is titled Oak Harbor Arts Commission. This is specific to the Arts Commission.
Stuckey.
I'm sure you've thought of this. You can't just go through them all and we just approve them in one swoop.
If you, as the council, want to go through all of them, I believe we could do them as a group. I know that we have legal on the phone, or on the video, but I believe so. We just thought you might want to go through them individually.
I mean, I'm assuming we've all read the packet. I mean, unless anyone has an objection to a specific one, it just seems like for efficiency, that would be the way to go. Unless someone's going to, I'm getting the this. So, okay, we'll just keep going. I think we can do it as one if everyone's okay with that.
Okay.
And legally, we're good with that.
So Julie, do you have a suggested way of doing the motion so that you get everything at once? Like consent?
Sabrina, the motion, I believe, would be to accept all suggested motions for each ordinance and resolution as presented.
Sorry.
Can I get that repeated one more time, and then I will repeat it?
Yes, thank you.
Let's piecemeal it.
All you have to do is say, so moved.
So moved. Second.
But, point of order, as I am not a council person,
Okay.
I believe you do need to make the
All right, walk me through it.
So the motion would be to accept the suggested motions for all ordinances and resolutions as presented. Accept all. We can
I move that we accept all the ordinances
all the
and resolutions as presented.
I think we're headed towards
that's
approving them
close.
all
That's very
right now.
Is it close enough?
that we accept all motions for accept the suggested motions for all ordinances and resolutions.
I move that we accept all the suggested
Motions
motions
for all ordinances and resolutions
for all ordinances and resolutions
as presented.
as presented.
Like dinner and a show.
Second.
So we do have a motion and a second. I'm not going to try to memorize it. We could read it back. That motion was made by Councillor Stuckey, second by Councillor Marshall. And I think what this means is that there won't be a separate presentation then for each and every one of these. They'll be accepted as we heard about them in our workshop and as you changed this and as they're presented tonight.
Correct. And then the terms will take effect, and I gave each one of you a sheet on that after they are accepted through the ordinance and resolution process.
Okay, Councillor Hoffmeyer.
I'm not expecting there would be any, but I'm assuming we're open for public comment on 7, everything?
We certainly could accept any public comment if anybody would like to make it, and it doesn't look like, okay? So we have a motion and a second. We have a question. Councilor Munns.
Sorry about that.
Nope.
I wasn't
Don't be.
there. I looked up chapter 67.28 RCW, and I just wanted to make sure that when our commission sends something forward on the LTAC, the rules have been, unless they've changed, and I didn't see that in the RCW, but we either accept the whole list and how the amounts that they come up with, or we send it back and say, we're concerned about, let's say, A and D and F on the list. Is that still going to happen, or?
Yes, we got a point of order.
Sorry, point of order. I don't think that's germane to the housekeeping of the ordinance.
I don't think LTAC is on this
Okay.
list, right?
No, LTAC is in the list,
Yes.
but
Well, yeah, what we do with their recommendation is not, it's not
Okay,
what
I
we're
just-
discussing.
You were referring to that RCW, and when I read it, I wasn't sure if you were going to change how it was accepted or not. So that's all I'm asking. If it's not, then that's great. I just, when you start reading through the weeds, and I wasn't there at that meeting, I just wanted to make sure it'll still operate.
Mayor
I
Pro
like
Tem
it
is,
cleaning up.
Mayor Pro Tem is asking me to rule on the point of order. So
Okay.
I believe I will rule that it is not germane to what we're trying to do right now. Okay? Anyone else? Any other questions? I'll take another question on that. I didn't have a very good answer last time, so. Anyone else? Yes, Councilor Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. Can we just confirm with Hillary that we can approve all of these in one fell swoop like that, just to make sure?
Okay.
I've been listening, and you absolutely can, the way Julie said it, if you can repeat it the way she said it.
challenge accepted.
So it's already been done, right? She listened carefully and said,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes, Hillary, Councilmember Stuckey did repeat that verbatim following me in pieces. Would you like him to do the entire thing in
Yes.
one fell swoop?
Yeah, no, I think that counts. I think.
Just one moment.
She's helping. Y'all need them.
Yeah, right.
Do I need to repeat this again? All right. I'd like to make a motion to accept the suggested motion for all ordinances and resolutions as presented.
okay, so that was the motion. The second was Councilmember Marshall. And our attorney has okayed that motion. Any other questions or input or concerns? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by raising your right hand. Any opposed? It looks like it passes unanimously. Did you vote?
No. I didn't vote because I'm still, it's just, when I'm reading the RCWs, I know what we're cleaning up and I agree with that, but I didn't know if it was going to change how
Okay.
it is handled. And I thought that was part of this motion, but if it's not, if it's just cleaning up how many members and using the
Okay.
template and all that, then I'll vote for it. Otherwise, I'll just abstain. No opinion at this time?
Well, then I'm going to call that a 6 in favor and 1 abstention.
Okay. That's fine.
Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Thank you, Sabrina. You know, I will have to say that you got some compliments here. When you got started on this, I thought you absolutely won't get this done before I'm done, so what do I don't think that simply, but I did not think that Sabrina and staff, because it always takes extra staff, would jump on this and take, and just, you know, we did get lots of input actually from committees, and it's a change. But my point is, when you give something to this staff, then get out of the way, because they're going to get it done. And thank you very much for all your time and effort. I
You
know
are
you
welcome.
worked hard on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think
All
I'm
right.
gonna stay, 'cause I think I'm next.
That's great.
I think I'm next.
So I think that we are now on item number 8 on our agenda. Item number 8, am I right about that?
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay. Is extension of professional services agreement with Evans Marina Solutions for Lagoon Dock. And for this, we have our Park and Rec Director, Brian Smith. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. No presentation needed for this. I'll just give you a brief update on the project. So we are permitting for 2 projects that are in close proximity to each other. One is for the channel maintenance at the lagoon, which we're seeking a multi-year permit for, and the other is a project permit for the lagoon dock replacement. So we're working with the Department of Fish and Wildlife on getting a hydraulic project approval and have submitted the State Environmental Policy Act checklist for both projects. We submitted materials for the Joint Aquatic Resource Permit application for each of those as well, and the habitat assessment. Since Windjammer Park is located within an area of private tidelands in Oak Harbor, we don't need a DNR use authorization in the form of a license or lease for the project. So we're just extending this agreement with Evans Marine Solutions for 6 months. That'll allow us to finish up the review process of the permits, and we're anticipating installation of the dock in spring of this coming year. So staff recommends authorizing the mayor to sign the agreement extension with Evans Marine Solutions, and happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Before we turn to council, I'd like to verify that there's been no public comment
That's
received.
correct, Mayor. No comment was received from the
Okay.
public.
Make sure nobody here is here to comment. Okay, then we'll turn to council. Yes, Councilor Stuckey.
Don't worry, I'm not making a motion. If I remember correctly, this was partly funded by a T-Mobile grant. We're not at risk of losing that because of timeframes, are we?
No, the grant's good for 2 years, and it was for $50,000 with the balance of, I believe, is $4,400 out of the park operations fund. So we're well within the project completion time period.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Hoffmeyer.
I had a similar question, Brian, and I think that T-Mobile grant came through in the fall of 21. So knowing that it was a 2-year grant is why I was concerned, but we are fine on the timeline, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
we have 1 more year out of that.
Perfect. And I know, when I first mentioned this to you, but gosh, I guess a year ago when you started now, has it been a year already, Brian?
Yep, 1 year.
Wow. I know when I first mentioned this to you about a year ago, you were like, wait, what new dock? So anyway, good job to you and staff, and I can't wait to see this. And, it was the previous council that helped land this grant, so pretty cool. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Councilor Wiesner.
I'd like to move to authorize the mayor to sign the agreement extension with Evans Marine Solutions.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Motion is like the recommended action in your packet. That motion was made by Councilor Wiesner and second by Councilor Munns. Any other input or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by raising your right hand. That passes unanimously. Man, we are on a roll.
Thank you.
Geez, I wish I'd added a couple more things. No. So I believe our last item on our agenda for tonight is a discussion of our legislative priorities. And for that, we have our Executive Services Administrator, Sabrina Combs, back. Thank you. Welcome back.
Hello. So this is revisiting the items that we discussed a couple weeks ago. Actually, maybe like a week ago.
Yep.
Thank you, Tim. Okay. So As stated before, what the executive office does is we identify the current legislative priorities based on information we receive from other organizations, ourselves looking at some information we have internally, and then we brought that to council, and then based on council's feedback, we made some revisions. So I left a full-size copy on each of your desks there so that you had it. The changes that we made is we heard the comments about invest in our community and the tort reform. So we modified tort reform to say reduce financial impacts. That's the second one on the right side. And we included tort reform as part of that, but less specific and focused more on addressing the impacts to ratepayers by obtaining lower interest rates on the loan and reducing debt for the clean water facility. So we specifically targeted that. So that was most of the changes that were made to this document to address the comments based on what we heard. If there is anything else, please let us know, but that was what we felt we were addressing. And then in additional news, we're working with Interim Chief Slowick and some local legislators regarding the regional academy. So we're already starting some work on that as well. So with that, our next step is to receive council approval. Return in December again. I'll be here later this month to do the resolution to accept these, and then we'll add those to the website, and then of course we'll notify legislators in the area, and then we will update any of our federal grants and other items with our lobbyists. So with that, do you have any questions or comments?
Okay, I guess I'll just verify that we've had no other input before we go to council. Okay.
That's correct, Mayor. No other input was received.
Okay, thank you, Julie. So I'll turn to council for, yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Just quickly, I want to thank you for taking all of the feedback and consolidating it in a way that I think accurately reflects everybody's comments at the last one. The tort reform, you were able to reword that in a way that isn't just here's the thing, but why should you care about the thing? And I think it's a lot more palatable and succinct. And yeah, I think it's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? I saw a thumbs up. Councilor Hoffmeyer.
Just echo what Councilor Heisen said. Thank you. Thank you so much. You know, when council's down in Olympia or, you know, DC, wherever it is we go, right? It's so valuable to have something we can leave in the legislative aide's hand or in the representative's hand. So thank you so much. And it gives us all some very succinct talking points to stick to. So thank you.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
very much.
Councilor Munns.
Thank you, Mayor. Please be sure to send it to AWC because
Yes.
when they have it, it may not be, but if they hear a discussion, they'll go, oh, one of our cities has this. They can look at it and help support it. So just be sure you send it to them before January 1st.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilor Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. Sabrina, has there ever been a year that you can recall that we haven't raised the property tax by the minimum 1%?
Not
Or-
from my recollection. I know David Goldman's on the line here, so we can ask him. There's David Goldman.
Yeah, thank you, Sabrina. Yeah, not from my recollection. We went back like 20 years in the history, and we can't find anything. We can't find it where it wasn't.
So I guess where I have a hard time with it is if we increase it, my fear is that it's going to become an automatic, where if it goes up to 3%, it's going to be 3% every single year. It'll just be an automatic. And if I remember the conversation correctly from last time, any other adjustments have to be made by the voters. So the voters have to approve any increases. And that's where I have a hard time with this one, is that if we ask it to be increased and it's an automatic, now the voters don't have any say in that. We're taking them out of that equation. And so, you know, I'll defer to my rest of council, whatever they want to do. But that's just my personal hang up with this one is that we are taking that out of the hands of the voters and just making it almost an automatic property tax increase. And whatever that maximum is, it seems to be that's what we'll end up doing inevitably, because when there's more money available, we're going to spend more money. And so, again, I'll defer to council, but that's my comment. Thank you. But I appreciate everything else. Thank you.
Thank you for the input. We appreciate it.
Councilor Hoffmeyer?
Mr. Goldman, I do have a question on that. A smaller agency, to even increase that 1%, they have to show a substantial need. Is that similar for a municipality?
A substantial need, my understanding is that's only when the CPI is, or the implicit price deflator, that's what they use for inflation, not CPI, but that's when the implicit price deflator is below 1%. So that doesn't happen that often, but it does happen. We did that same thing, I think 3 or 4 years ago when it was below 1% at the very beginning of COVID. But yeah, that's my understanding of when you have to do that substantial need.
I thought that's what I remembered, and I hear what Councilmember Marshall is saying, and I think obviously many of the taxpayers do. I wonder, the state legislature looked at this last year at 3%, and there wasn't the votes to move it ahead. Maybe there's a way we could help them. Maybe the truth is in the middle somewhere. Maybe we should make that 2% instead of 3%. Just an idea. Thank you.
Councilor Munns?
Each city and town has their own needs and stuff. And you don't, just because it says 3, you don't have to. I mean, we should listen and know our citizens. And different cities have different problems or different communities than we do, if it happens to go. But I remember when Mac McDowell was one of the commissioners, and I think it was 2 years in a row, and it was 3%, and they didn't pass it. But then in later years, because they didn't, you don't have it where if we don't do the 1%, it kind of just adds a little bit each time. But if you miss a year, then you've missed that. And so you never are with inflation, but you try to keep it, you can't even keep it even, but just kind of try to keep it moving forward. Unless someone endows us, with $40 million to our general fund because they would like to, but you don't have to if it happens to go that way. We are supposed to be wise and figure out if we're going to do it or not each time. But it compounds, and if you miss one, then it seems like it causes a bigger gap when you get 5 years down the way. But the county did what they thought was right, and then in later years, they wish they had 1% or at least one of the 3% that they didn't. So it's just, you've just got to work at it. And I say, pray. I pray when I come here, and that may be against other people, that I'm doing what is right for the city and not right for Beth Munns and to get her name somewhere. It's you're doing the right thing with the right thing in your mind and your heart, and look at all the examples. But I would not mind if we changed the 3 to 2%, but I wouldn't keep it just at 1, because each city and town is in a different circumstance, and they have to do what's right for themselves. And that's what I believe in, that AWC tries to do, is give us the legislation that we can act on how Oak Harbor wants to be. It's like when the cell towers, the big companies across the country wanted one thing to fit all, but it doesn't fit how our town sees it, aesthetic-wise, how the towers are or where they can be. And so we were with, 30 other cities, I believe, to decide, and fought that so that we could decide what we wanted and what fit in our town best. So it's kind of the same thing, but I would not object if someone wanted to change the 3 to 2. Thank you.
Councilor Stuckey?
I think it's obvious from last time, Councilmember Marshall, I'm with you 100%. Where those a little more critical of local government, even if we sit up here and say, hey, that's great, it's up to us to decide that. Those that are critical will say, if the local government or any government has the ability to do it, they're going to do it. We can talk about it all day, but you're probably right. It probably would become an automatic, to be blunt, if it went through. Important to remember that this is just legislative priorities. This is not the city of Oak Harbor saying this is how it's going to be. This is us talking to our legislators casually and seeing if it goes through. It very well may not go through because it has not gone through in the past. One question I do have, which is, I feel relevant, is expenses in the future we may not consider. For example, isn't it true that when we hit 25,000, Highway 20 is ours to maintain? No? I don't know where I heard that. Okay, scratch that.
I think that threshold may have changed.
Did it change?
Alex might be the best person to answer that question.
Okay, I thought it was at 25 at one point.
The threshold changed.
Oh, it changed. Okay, that's on me then. But yeah, I like David Goldman's response last time to my same concern. Like, it's up to us to make sure it doesn't happen frivolously or automatic. So I'm not opposed to it being on there because I like the idea of being a tool, but it needs to be a tool, not, oh, it passed, and every time let's just do 3%. So my two thoughts. I don't think changing it from 3% to 2% is really going to make a difference. I mean, if it makes everyone feel better, fine, but I don't know if that change is really going to make a practical difference.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I just want to reiterate what Councilor Stuckey said. All this is just communicating with the elected representatives higher up the food chain about what our priorities are, what we would like them to address. Us submitting this doesn't make anything change. It doesn't make anything happen. It doesn't suddenly change anything to 3%. It just, all it is if our legislators get priorities from every city in the state, and every city in the state is saying, hey, we would really like you to reevaluate this 1% thing, then it might get their attention and they might take some action. They also might not. So us saying we would like some wiggle room in that number, doesn't actually do anything until our state electeds decide to revise that 1% cap. So I'm fine with just letting them know that we would like some flexibility within that number. I don't expect them to change it this year or probably even next year, but I think it would be nice if they heard a collective message from all the cities in the state that this is something that needs to be addressed. So I'm fine with it as is. Saying 2% or 3% or even just not including a percentage and just say revise the cap, reevaluate that. I don't know. It's 6 of one or half a dozen of the other. I don't think it would have any change in the impact of the message if we started messing with the 3% number. That's all.
So I saw your hand, but I'm going to go to Councilor Wiesner. Councilor Wiesner?
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's kind of assumed that, even if there was a passing of a 2% or a 3%, that there would be strings, right? I mean, right now, even the 1% has strings. The 1% says we must have inflation at or above 1%, or we have to show a substantial need. In other words, we have to make a very conscious effort to buck the trend of the inflation, right? So I would picture that if they did a 2% or a 3%, we would have similar requirements, right? That we'd only be able to invoke that 3% if, in fact, we had inflation triggers above that 3% threshold. Otherwise, we would, have to sit down and have a serious reason for taking it there. So, I don't know necessarily the 1%'s been pretty automatic, right? Because of the fact that we realize that the vast majority of years out of the last 20 years, I think we've only had, 4 years where we had inflation below the 1% level, right? And 16 of those years, the inflation was well above the 1%. In fact, sometimes it was 3 or 4%, yet we were limited to that 1%, and we understood that if we didn't take it this year, like Councilmember Munns was saying, it compounds, right? The loss of that revenue, you never get it back. That 1%, when you raise 1% the next year, you're raising it on 1% less that you didn't take the year before. That's and thank for that, David. And I'm right there with 4 years out of the last 17 that we've had numbers below that 1%. So, I think what we want to do is we want to get a little bit more control. Right now, that 1% has to be automatic, right? Because we don't have the ability to make it up, because the next year, the max we can do is 1%. I think by having the ability to do 3% and keep with inflation, we could find ourselves some years saying, you know what? We don't need to do it this year, right? Because we know next year we have the ability to go up to 3% if inflation goes up 3%. So I look at it as more of an evening out with the trends that we're seeing in front of us, and having the ability to not make that an automatic year after year, and actually be able to follow the trend of the inflationary factors, and maybe actually find ourselves one year not raising the rates, because we know that we're not have to worry about that compound issue and falling behind year after year. So that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Councilor Marshall? Okay. Okay, we're not really asked, I guess, at this point. It's coming back to us
Yes.
next meeting. Isn't that
Yes, I
correct?
just wanted to make sure we were good with the layout, and then we'll do the resolution at the next meeting to approve it. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. So what time do you think this meeting?
Thank you.
Anyway,
I said 7:20.
well, it's not 7:20, and I'm not done yet. So.
Well, if they all went this way, Mayor, you would have ran for another term, I'm sure. Right?
Yeah. You know, so I did have a conversation with our newest Councilor Arms earlier today, but I just wanted to tell you that when I got started, my very first year, that's where I sat. And we were doing, at that point in time, I think Mayor Pro Tem will probably remember, or Councilor Munns, we were trying to do what was called a round robin, where everybody almost was expected to talk. And I'll tell you, when I first sat down in that, I wasn't ready for any kind of a conversation, and it took several meetings actually for. I personally, I like the way we do it now, where I try to recognize best I can, make sure everybody gets a chance to talk, and then certainly more than once if necessary. But you can discuss that in the retreats coming up as far as where you're going, and again, it's nice to have you here. I want to tell council that I appreciate your help all the time, and your thoughts and your questions, I think, help the others, you know, with decisions and their own questions, and I appreciate that very much. So with that, I guess I'll ask if there's any additional council business. I wanted to go a couple minutes past 7:20 because I did not want Councilor Stuckey to say, see, I told you. And with that, if there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn, if it doesn't come from Stuckey. Yes, Councilor Hoffmeyer.
You don't have a gavel.
You know, good point, you know. I do. I think it's in my office, if you want me to run in and get it. I do have another one. I do have a second one. Yes, Councilor Munns?
Could we give the honor tonight to our new council member Ames to do, that's usually kind of a tradition. The brand new one gets to do the first motion for them.
For tonight? The motion to adjourn? I would entertain a motion to adjourn from Councilor Arms. Yeah.
I motion to adjourn this meeting.
Got a motion second? All in favor signify by just waving goodbye and thanking our citizens.